So, our today's story is about a 20-year-old boy named Jinho, living in China's Shenzhen city, who stayed in a rented house with his 6-year-old younger sister, because their mother had passed away several years ago, and during their very childhood, their father abandoned them all. That's why Jinho now has to take care of his sister. And now, to run their household expenses, he quit his studies and opened a mobile repair shop, where he fixed all kinds of old phones. Although he couldn't earn much money from this work, they were somehow managing. Their days were passing quite well like this. Every morning, he would drop his sister off at school, and then come to the shop from there and work. But for the past few days, Jinho's sister started suffering from a physical problem. Doctors informed that she had a heart problem, because of which she couldn't breathe properly, and this was her hereditary disease. Her mother had also died from the same disease. Now, to save his sister from this disease, she needed a heart operation within the next 2 years. Here, the problem was that this operation required a lot of money, and Jinho couldn't earn much by the end of the month, even after toiling all day in his shop. That's why he was very worried about this matter. Now, after several days passed like this, suddenly one night, his friend named Jean called him and summoned him. Jean worked at a big warehouse where various goods from many companies were stored. That night, Jean took Jinho to a large room inside their warehouse, where thousands of old phones were kept in big boxes. Jean said, these phones were bought by an import-export company owner from Italy, but currently that man is in jail, and for the past 2 years, he hasn't been able to pay our warehouse rent. Therefore, the owner of our storeroom decided to sell these phones quickly to vacate the place. Now, if you want, you can buy all these old phones for just 100,000 yuan. These phones failed the quality test only due to minor problems. But since you know how to fix old phones, you can repair them later and earn a lot more money from them. Then Jinho brought home the quality test reports of those phones to think about this matter. And while leaving there, he brought an old phone with him. And after looking at all the reports of those phones, he tried to fix that old phone. And after trying for a while, he fixed that phone very easily. And after fixing this phone, he realized that all the phones there had very minor, small problems, and they could be fixed very easily with a little effort. So he decided to buy all those phones. But now he didn't have enough money. So he mortgaged his shop papers and took a loan from one place. Then he went to a mobile phone shop and made a deal with them to sell all these old phones. Calculating here, it was seen that if all those phones were sold, Jinho could earn 900,000 yuan from there, which made him very happy, because with this money, he could easily get his sister's operation done. But within 2 weeks of this incident, their country's government completely banned buying or selling old phones. Now, overnight, buying or selling old phones became completely illegal. Now, if any shopkeeper was caught selling these old phones, all their goods would be confiscated, and they would be arrested. That's why now, no shopkeeper wanted to buy those old phones from Jinho. And within these 2 weeks, he had managed to sell very few phones. Now, because of this new rule, he became very worried, because he had taken a big loan by mortgaging his shop to buy these phones. But now, it was no longer possible for him to sell these phones. The new business he invested so much money in was shut down even before it started. One night, Jean noticed that all the thousands of old phones he had belonged to Signing Electronics Company. The next morning, Jinho went directly to Signing Electronics Company and contacted the manager there. Jinho told him, I have many of your company's old phones. The government has now banned selling old phones. But if you want, I can sell you all those phone parts at a very low price which you can use for various other tasks. And this will significantly reduce your costs. Then that manager said, most of the phones you have are probably damaged, and now they might not pass our quality test. Then Jinho said, but what if they pass the quality test? Will you buy them from me then? Then that manager said, all right, first you pass the test, then I'll think about it. Then Jinho returned home and started disassembling parts from all the old phones he had. And he took apart parts from one phone of each different model and sent them for quality testing. It was seen that all those parts had passed the quality test well. So he hurried to the Signing Electronics office and met that manager. Then that manager said, I never told you I'd buy them if your parts passed. And saying this, he asked Jinho to leave. Actually, since Jinho was only 20 years old, that man couldn't trust him at all. But Jinho didn't want to give up here at all. He tried to talk to the company's managing director, Mr. Zhang, about this matter. Jinho told him, If you give me 10 minutes, I can properly explain my entire business plan to you." Then Mr. Zhang said, "I'm very busy right now. I'm catching a 3 p.m. train to leave the city for a month. Contact me again when I return after 1 month." And saying this, he left in his car for the station. But Jinho didn't want to give up here. He took a scooter and started heading towards the station to talk to Mr. Zhang. But on the way, he faced many problems. He even had a couple of accidents. But despite that, after much effort, he boarded the train at the last moment with Mr. Zhang. Once on the train, he said to Mr. Zhang, "I hope you can give me 10 minutes now." Seeing his effort, Mr. Zhang agreed to listen to him. After hearing everything, he said, "You can't do this. Many parts will get damaged during this process." Then Jinho said, "But what if I can do it? Will you buy them then?" Mr. Zhang said, "Alright, if you can do this work and if 85% of your parts pass our quality test, I'll buy them. But you must do it within a specific time frame. And I can't give you any money upfront for this work. Nor can I provide any factory or employees to help you. You must do everything yourself." Then, he gave Jinho his manager's card and said, "The day you feel you are ready for this work, call this number and come to our office. We will sign a contract." After hearing all this, Jinho became very worried, because this work involved a lot of risk. If he couldn't complete the work on time, or if his parts didn't pass the quality test, he wouldn't get a single penny. That's why he would lose all his money and shop. Even the time and money he would spend on this work would be completely wasted. But if he could do this work properly, he would earn a lot of money very quickly, with which he could get his sister's operation done very well. Now, to help himself with this work, Jinho contacted his neighbor Liang, because it was impossible for him alone to do this work in such a short time. Liang and his wife ran an old age home to care for elderly people. After hearing everything, initially Liang advised him against doing this work. Then Jinho said, "I have no choice right now. To get my sister's operation done, I must take this risk." Hearing this, Liang agreed to help him. Meanwhile, it was seen that Jinho hadn't repaid a single penny of the loan he took some months ago to buy those old phones. So now, the creditors confiscated his shop and all the goods in the shop. And now, due to lack of money, he had to sell his scooter too. And after losing his shop, he had no work left. So he contacted an old friend for work. And from here, he got a job cleaning windows of big, tall buildings. Here, Jinho's job was to hang by ropes and clean the outside glass of those buildings. And since this job involved high risk, the employees were paid a slightly higher salary than other jobs. Now, Jinho and Liang rented a cheap factory for their work. It was seen that this factory had been lying dirty and abandoned for many years. But Jinho and Liang worked all day to clean the dirty place and redecorate it anew. And right beside the factory, in an empty space under a shed, they started storing all the big boxes of thousands of phones he had, covering them with thick cloth. Jinho had no better place to keep those phones now. Now, for working in this factory, he needed some employees, but he couldn't afford to hire anyone with a high salary. So, he started hiring people whom no one else wanted to employ, or who had been fired from companies for some mistake, because such people would agree to work with them for very little money. And after a little searching, they found several people. The woman you see here is named Chunmei. She once worked at a big electronics company, but while working in that factory, there were very loud noises, because of which Chunmei and many other employees completely lost their hearing. And after this incident, they were all fired from the company. That's why now she only does whatever small jobs she gets. And the man you see here is named Zhang. He once worked in a very big company, but one day, while trying to save an employee, Zhang got into a fight with that company's manager. Zhang knew boxing very well, so he easily beat up his manager and knocked him out. And for this act, he had to spend several years in jail. But after getting out of jail, no one wanted to hire him. So he tried to do various small jobs from home. And he has a strange habit here. He doesn't like mingling with many people. He prefers to spend most of his time with street dogs. And this guy is named Henji. He loves playing video games. So Henji and his friends worked at a cyber cafe for very little money, where they got to play games all day. But for the past few days, Henji had been in love with a girl whom he now wanted to marry. And that's why he stopped playing games at his cyber cafe and wanted to do a real good job. And now he brought along a friend to work at Jinho's factory. Now, with all these people, Jinho started his factory. And to help Jinho with this work, Liang brought several elderly people from his old age home. These people were old, but many of them had years of work experience. Now, Jinho started training all of them for this new work and taught them all how to properly disassemble all the parts from the phones. Now, Jinho named this factory Nice View, which was the name of his old mobile repair shop. Now, to run this company and pay everyone's salaries, Jinho worked every morning cleaning windows of tall buildings with that friend. And, returning home at night, he himself worked on disassembling mobile parts. And, amidst so much work pressure, he still tried to take and bring his sister to school on time and get her medical checkups. Now, a few days after this incident, a man came to Jinho's factory wanting to buy some old phones from him and agreed to give him a lot of money for them. And Jinho desperately needed the money right then because he hadn't paid his house rent for many months. But since selling old phones was completely illegal now, Jinho, not wanting to take any risk, refused the man. Now, quite some days after this incident, that boy Henji married his girlfriend. And that day, Jinho and all his other factory friends came to Henji's wedding ceremony, where everyone had great fun all day. Now, returning home at night after the ceremony, Jinho and his sister were evicted by their landlord because he hadn't paid the rent for this room for 3 months. Now, he had no place to stay with his sister. At that moment, he couldn't figure out what to do. Now, having no other option, that night he took his sister and went to Liang and his wife's old age home. After staying there for the next 2 or 3 days, he started living with his sister in their factory. Inside that factory, he made a small room for them to live in by enclosing an area with cardboard boxes. Jinho's little sister also quietly accepted all these difficulties. She never complained to her brother, but this incident made Jinho very sad, because despite all his efforts, he couldn't provide well for his sister. And now he decided that no matter what, he wouldn't give up. And from then on, he started working even harder. He even stopped sleeping at night, trying to work all night long. After learning about Jinho and his sister's situation, all his other factory friends also felt very bad. And now they too started working much harder than before so they could finish all the work on time. Now, after several days passed like this, one night while sleeping, Jinho heard some people talking outside his factory. Hearing that, he came out and saw 2 men stealing the big boxes of phones he had stored outside the factory. And now, seeing Jinho, those men stole some phones and tried to escape in their car. Now, these old phones were all Jinho had. They were his only assets. And only with their help could he get out of this bad situation. Now, seeing these phones being stolen before his eyes, he quickly tried to stop the thieves. And he started hanging from the moving car door from the outside. Seeing her brother in this state, Jinho's sister got very scared. Jinho wasn't thinking straight now. He was trying to save his assets, even risking his life. After trying for a while, Jinho fell onto the road with one thief. But the other thief escaped with the car and the phones. Jinho was badly injured in this accident. He couldn't even stand up properly. But despite that, he held on to that thief lying on the road and called the police. Here, it was seen that 2 fingers of his hand were broken in the accident. And by then, his sister had also come out searching for him and reached him. Seeing his sister in this state, he realized he had made a big mistake. If something had happened to him, there would be no one to care for his sister. Since Jinho had caught the thief, the police, with the thief's help, recovered all his stolen phones and returned them to him. Now, because of his broken fingers, it was very difficult for him to work. One day, while cleaning the glass of a tall building, his hand slipped and a bucket full of equipment fell to the ground. Now, learning about this incident, his boss fired him from the job. He said, "Why were you taking so much risk? Your life could have been lost for this." And saying this, he gave him some money and asked him to go home, and told him to return to the job only after fully recovering. But his troubles didn't seem to end here. He hadn't paid his factory rent for many months. So, the owner told him that within the next 3 days, either pay all the rent or vacate the place. After losing that job due to his broken fingers, he had no money left now. And in this situation, he felt like all roads were closed to him. He couldn't figure out what to do in this situation. That evening, heavy storms and rain started in their city, because of which the authorities warned everyone not to go outside. But Jinho went to meet that manager at Signing Electronics Company amidst this heavy storm and rain. He said, "I am in a lot of trouble right now. I don't have a single penny. I can't even pay my factory rent. If you can advance me some money for this work now, it would help me greatly. In return for this favor, I'll sell you all those items at a much lower price later. But that manager didn't help him at all and threw him out into the storm. Now, while doing all this, he was very late to pick up his sister from school. So now, amidst this heavy storm, he started walking towards his sister's school. It was seen that the school had closed long ago, and now, his sister was waiting for him inside the security guard's room. Now, he sat inside that room with his sister, waiting for the storm to stop. Jinho was now feeling extremely depressed because of all these incidents happening to him. But then, he remembered the promise he made to his mother before she died. No matter how many problems life throws, he would always take good care of his sister, and he would never cause her any suffering. The next morning, he saw that the place under the shed where he had stored all his big boxes of phones was completely destroyed due to the heavy storm. Although, in this incident, his phones were completely safe because they were sealed inside plastic-covered boxes. In this situation, the factory owner informed him that he must vacate the place within the next 3 days, because he had now rented the factory to someone else. After this incident, Jinho had completely given up, because he had only 2 weeks left to deliver the parts. But now, they had no place to store or work on the phones. That's why he sat outside the factory, feeling very sad. Then, he informed all his friends about his situation, saying, "I don't have a single penny left. I won't be able to pay your salaries. Besides, our factory has been rented to someone else, so we have no place to work." Then, his friend said, "You don't need to worry about our salaries. Pay us after this work is done. Do you think we'd abandon you in your trouble like this? Remember, we are all your family. Besides, if you want, we can now do this work from our own homes. We don't need any factory for this now. And this way, we can finish all the work on time." Hearing these words, Jinho cried profusely with joy, and then they all took the phones to their homes and started working. And now, Jinho and his sister started living with all the elderly people at Liang's old age home. And now, they all worked day and night and finished the work just in time. And then came the day to deliver their parts. Now, all these parts they had disassembled over so many days were taken for quality testing. Now, at least 85% of these parts had to pass that test. If less, all these parts would be rejected. After a while, Jinho and all his other friends were called to the cabin of Signing Electronics Managing Director, Mr. Zhang. Mr. Zhang was very pleased with him now, because, despite so many problems in his life, he had completed this work on time. Moreover, 87% of his parts had passed the quality test. That's why he was very happy and signed a 5 million yuan contract for 2 years with Jinho and his company. Everyone was very happy with this outcome, and after leaving the office while getting into the lift, they started shouting loudly and hugging each other. A few months ago, Jinho had taken such a big risk that everyone thought was impossible. And achieving this amidst so many difficulties in his life was truly impossible. But despite everything, without giving up, Jinho had made this impossible task possible through his hard work. And later, in 2014, he got his sister's operation done, after which she became completely healthy, and gradually his company became very big. And in 2019, it became a subsidiary or supporting company of Signing Electronics. And Jinho became the CEO and managing director of such a big company at a very young age. And here, the story of this movie ends. Like Jinho in this story, each of us faces problems, big or small, in life. Often, because of these problems, we feel like giving up and stepping back. But if we trust ourselves and work hard honestly, everything is possible for us. The bigger the dream, the greater the problems will be. But at the end of the day, we must fulfill our dreams ourselves. If you liked the video, you can subscribe to the channel.